Do we have Lewis, or is that from?
All right. I think everybody that we got today. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Monday, August 23rd meeting of the Manufacturing Oversight Committee for the Helium Network. We've got a few newcomers joining, and let's see here. We got Jameson, Nick. Actually, sorry, let me pull up where's our agenda?
Let me know if you need the link.
Yeah, actually, can you
chat here of this? Oh, I was about to hit the leave button, not the submit button. Okay.
All right. So is everybody already added their name that's attending?
It says Lewis is here, but he's not. Should we just ping him?
Yep. If Lewis comes in, we can get to him later. But
yeah, he's not super important.
I think I had to request access to the whatever that link was.
Yeah, I gave it to you, I think.
Good.
Get it?
All right. We don't have Phil, but I think we need to get started. So we've got Felipe coming back again, Nick, Jameson. So real quick note on that. So for you guys who are newcomers, we want to hear your opinions. We want to hear your feedback. Please don't think this is just a situation for you guys to come in and kind of sit back and observe. We actually, part of the process of adding new people to this committee is we want to make sure that there are, strong opinions weekly held in the sense that you have a vision on where you think the direction of the committee, the network, and in general where we want to be going on this. But the idea that we all are trying to grow together in this, establish the right types of standards, practices, and how we think that everything should be governed in a way that optimizes for decentralization and permissionlessness, but while also protecting security and the network in general. So Nick, if you want to kind of quickly, 30 seconds, if you don't mind, just kind of a quick intro and what you'd like to kind of contribute to the oversight committee.
Sure. My name is Nick Hawks on Discord. I'm Gristle King. I run the Kick 13 website and trying to explain Helium to people who have even less technical understanding than I do, which is pretty low. Coming into the DUI stuff, I think the thing I'd probably most able to help with is taking stuff that you guys probably have a pretty deep understanding of than I can probably figure out, and then helping the rest of the world understand why we're making the decisions we're making and how that whole decision process happens, and breaking that down so that it's understandable for non-engineers.
Awesome. Thank you, Nick. And Jameson, you want to jump in? 30 seconds, be a little bit about you and then kind of what you're hoping to bring to the oversight committee.
Sure. My name is Jameson Buffmeyer, currently serving in the strategy group for Orange, a multinational telecom company, but making a transition actually to a IoT distributor soon in the Helium ecosystem. Longtime proponent, known the company since 2013, was in the first hotspot batch, run a validator node on Discord as JT Buffmeyer. Really keen to see the growth of the network, but maintained through quality and security. And keen to help also ideally improve process to onboard gateways frictionlessly from established vendors. So that's where my interest lies, and that's why I'm here.
Wonderful. Thank you, guys. And I think, Felipe, we kind of got the intro from you last time. I think you're just coming in to participate again, make some contributions, so happy to have you back. I'm just going to keep moving right along here. And Jameson, I'll follow up with you separately because we got to get you into the Discord as well. RevoFi, next thing on the list. My thing is I'd love for us to resolve that today, but Jeremy, do you mind kicking off the conversation?
Yeah, I think we're all kind of pretty nebulous on this one. So for background, remember, RevoFi is a vendor who's applying under HIP-19 and who is offering to ship a hotspot that also mines tokens on their own chain called Revos. It's not very clear what they hope to do with their blockchain. It's not currently bootstrapped. It's has not even started. But portions of it that are disturbing to me are one, they're in the same space. Part of their blockchain uses very similar terms, proof of coverage, and they're using Wi-Fi 6 for some portion of it. Supposedly going to have some storage component of it. It looks like it's a, their attempt to do something. It's not very clear. What kind of is clear to me is that they're hoping to bootstrap their blockchain off of the popularity of Helium. And that to me is kind of a strike. We have many other manufacturers who are preparing to submit purely under our blockchain. They're not trying to compete in another one. They're not trying to bootstrap another one. And here we have someone approaching us asking to make hotspots, which is great, but it's pretty clear that they're kind of dependent on our popularity. So my vote is pretty much no for this. It's a big competitor. It's not established exactly what they're trying to do because of the clarity and because they're simply just not perfectly aligned with Helium. They're not totally dedicated to just this blockchain. There's no reason for us to accept them. We have many other manufacturers who are itching in line, who are totally hitched to our wagon and not someone else's. So that's sort of my opinion. And I've consulted a lot with DY board and other people familiar with Helium's inception and purpose, and they kind of agree with me there. But I'm certainly happy to hear alternative opinions. I mean, if we deny them, they're going to make noise. They've already made quite a bit of noise. That's another thing that's annoying of them. They haven't yet. They've been a bit disparaging publicly about Helium, so that makes it even less so that we want to join them. I'm kind of a person who's a bit more immune to criticism. I feel any criticism is valid, but I know it certainly does rub people the wrong way, especially if we're talking about trusting a manufacturer. Eroding us in public forums erodes that trustability, which is, again, another bad shot. So that's my take.
I agree with you, Jeremy, but I think we need to be very clear on the criteria. And I think it was in what you said, but can we be even more clear? I think there was some Discord exchange. I kind of outlined a little bit of what I thought. So we had talked about, right, there's no policy against supporting different types of blockchains on the same hardware. In fact, we think that's an area where there could be innovation. But in this particular case, it was because it was directly competitive to Helium, or appears to be. So
yeah, in this case, it's Wi-Fi 6. So I would say I would really like to have a central message about it because we're setting a precedent here. And
right.
It's going to come up
that's
again,
what I want to talk
right?
about next is what's the litmus test? So when the next one comes up, we're consistent. And I mean, that's the most important thing is that we're consistent. We apply the same rules to everybody.
I would add one thing to that. So I think the Wi-Fi 6 is one because I think it is competitive when they talk about wireless. But the other thing too is I think if it's a brand new blockchain that has no code, it's not in public yet, they don't have a mainnet, we should just flat out reject anything like that. Like if somebody's going to bring a blockchain, it should be something that already exists, it's got code out there, it's already public, it's mainnet, it's already running. Because right now my fear I feel that they're a bit dishonest and they're very difficult to trust. My fear is that once this thing goes, they'll just do whatever they want and tweak it however they want. And maybe they'll make it to 100% competitive with us. And I'm not sure what we do then. And so I'd much rather have something established. The other thing too is I can't tell if they're not misleading the public by trying to just hit all these buzzwords just to maybe try and get an ICO off the plate and then maybe burn everybody. So again, I think that the two things are wireless obviously raises a concern, and B, if it's a brand new blockchain that is unproven, then that should be another thing we should just flat out reject.
Yeah,
Well,
and
Ron,
not only it's not proven yet, they have no code out there, and they are already advertising as being connected with Helium. In their LinkedIn profiles, the CEO, I shared the links. For me, the fact that they're trying to bootstrap themselves to us, even without having any kind of acknowledgement, it's already a red flag.
how would we react? So given all these very good opinions, how would we react to an existing manufacturer we have a partnership with who decides to boot their own blockchain? We would have to hold them to the same standard.
I actually think that the same standards would apply just fine. And by the way, I actually would, Nick and James would love to make sure you guys can kind of weigh in here as well. But I think kind of as far as the criteria, Brad, to your question, and Chris, to your answer of like, if it's something that's in wireless, like yes, they're launching with Wi-Fi 6, but if you are mining a token for a peer-to-peer wireless network off of the same exact gateway, and then all of a sudden they decide to, undercut Helium, which we just don't know what they're going to do. It is the potential for value degradation of the network, which again, like you're harming the community, you're harming other manufacturers. So to me, it's I kind of agree with Chris on there needs to be some blockchain with code that is visible. I would say that anything that is trying to build wireless P2P, like there's just too much potential for value degradation. And a third thing that I kind of say is more of a subjective is just some sense of established community, some like other ecosystem that is not like there should be some symbiosis here. Like when I looked at what Deeper's doing around like kind of VPN, like that seems like there's more potential for a symbiotic relationship between two different ecosystems. So I definitely agree with Chris's points and having these kind of more clear criteria.
So if you write these, like I'm just reading the notes, right? So to state it more generally, right? If the device is going to have an additional blockchain besides Helium, it cannot be a wireless blockchain, right? Which potentially encroaches on where Helium is today or may go in the future, right? And to Chris's point, it has to have a functioning blockchain with source code with some kind of mainnet out there that has some level of deployment, right? You can't bootstrap, like Chris said, your idea on the back of Helium's success.
How easy
And
is
the
it
last
to-
one that I threw out is, and I don't know if this needs to be stated there too, is just from a technical perspective, it can't be something that we think may impede the performance of a Helium gateway. And what that could mean it's a little bit discretionary, but if somebody wants to put another blockchain on a device that hampers its function as a Helium device, then that's not acceptable. It could be memory, CPU, RF interference. I'm not sure. It's a little bit open-ended, but I think if we can identify something there, then it would be a reason to not let it move forward.
My feeling on that last bit, by the way, Brad, is I think that's something that we can kind of potentially solve through audits. And if they're really interested in, again, kind of partnering with Helium, then that additional audit can be done, but there'll be, it's more diligence. There might be a fee on top of that because we have to evaluate performance. So I think it's something that we can try to solve through our existing process, because we would need to kind of better define, like, what does it mean to, impede performance.
Okay.
So
Shouldn't the I think that's one area where the market can decide, because if it is underperforming and it's not earning, I know it's we have this big giant gray area of like things that we want to control and then things we should let the market control. And I don't know where that is, but that's one area where I would feel that the market can ultimately respond. And as bad as it is, like with the Nebra and stuff like that, some of these things I feel like we shouldn't take care of. We should let the market take care of itself, because we just put ourselves into too much liability for somebody gets burned or something.
But let me maybe put it this way: like if you're going to propose to run another blockchain on the device, when you submit the unit for review, you have to be running both workloads concurrently. Like, and I'm not saying this would happen, but somebody in theory could sell these things as Helium miners. Of course, the manufacturers can controlling the firmware. And then they could basically starve the Helium side, right, to do what they want to do on the other blockchain side.
Yeah,
Now,
but the thing
Chris,
is,
to your point, that the market solved that, but that doesn't mean that our community doesn't get buy thousands of devices that aren't doing the primary function they bought it for, which is to service the Helium network.
Yeah, the hard part of that is that they can just do a firmware update and put whatever other blockchain they want on it. Like, we just can't control it once it's out in the field, and that's what I'm worried about, is like if we have to now audit and things like this. I do agree that like we should test it under the realistic conditions that it's being advertised at, but that's not to say they can't just do a firmware update and then cheat anyways and then like lower the
Yeah, and I would want to bring up the higher level thing, which is that we're moving to light gateways. The load that you need to service for light gateway is so small. It's easy to weasel out and say, look, we've got the bare minimum to be light gateway. We're not going to be harmed. And they'll be able to prove that. They'll be able to say, look, light gateway is so easy. We can run our other full blockchain on here in consensus mode or whatever their version is, and we won't affect you at all. And that will be true. So that's a slippery target for us to amend. I'm curious, Nick, what you were going to say.
So I don't know, how difficult is it to start up a blockchain and have your own? Because is that an easy hurdle that anyone could do, or is that a significant effort for them to do? That'd be my first question.
Depends if you're an ERC20.
No, actually, it's real easy. If you want to copy somebody else's code, you can start something.
Yeah, it's 4.
The thing, it's fairly easy, but what's very difficult is to build community and to build some sort of level of volume and something that's consistent. Like I can start a blockchain here in my house and sure, it's great, but there's nobody using it. So it's really the community and it's the volume of usage it's hard to get going. And that is also an indicator of how well that blockchain may be received by the public.
Okay, so Chris and I think Brad, this idea of making a blockchain be a criteria sounds like a good one, but it probably has to have some additional pieces to it. Like what I'm thinking in super layman's terms is if you have a blockchain that has X amount of volume, then you can't also make a Helium miner, because just the blockchain alone, if you're saying that anyone can stand that up, like that's not really a difficult criteria. But if they have, basically we're saying if you have like a usable blockchain, you can't have 2 of them on a miner. There's got to be additional criteria there. Am I thinking that through right, or am I missing something?
Well, I thought it was the other way. You have to show that
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
You have you have to have
It's
some
the
level
opposite.
of market adoption first, because you just can't start your own blockchain and then piggyback on Helium. So it's kind of the opposite direction, I think.
Okay, but if that's
I would
the
say-
case, if you've got a blockchain with volume, then you're clearly a competitor, right? Because you have something that's useful. and you're using-
Non-wireless.
Depends on the
Non-
type of
non-wireless.
the blockchain.
Right.
Got it. Okay.
If you're not mining
But
RF.
if they have already a blockchain, it's working. It's not a parasitic. It's a symbiotic relationship. And if they are not wireless, we can coexist. Like with the deeper network, for instance, I see lots of good future together. But with this one, and they have no code, I would say for at least we make a requirement that they must have a working blockchain before we even consider anything through.
So I think
Yeah, so one thought to add to that as a student of the wireless industry for a long time, networks increase in value exponentially with the number of contributors to those networks. So I think it's a bigger issue for DY and the MOOC. Do you want to ever have private networks contributing and burning Helium to use private networks, or do you want to have adjacent networks run on parallel and on the same hardware? My gut would be no. Because we want open, decentralized, public wireless infrastructure and not a community of networks supporting smaller communities. But that's my take. I am a big proponent in public networks, not private. If you think back to the days before the deregulation of the current wireless industry, you had networks that couldn't call each other. You had Sprint phones that couldn't call AT&T phones that couldn't call Verizon phones. We don't want that. We want one public network. And it could confuse the developer community too. If you have a hardware being sold that can have 2 networks run on it, what are the developers building for?
So just to make sure, so I agree, like you can't have a network that's competing with Helium on it. But for example, if you wanted to talk to a BLE sensor or from a one of the existing gateways, or you wanted to use it as a Wi-Fi access point or a Wi-Fi extender at the same time, like I don't think that, my personal opinion is that's not a problem. Like that just makes the product more usable in a real world. Or the thing here that I think we're trying to be specific to is somebody trying to run another blockchain token kind of driven thing that's potentially competitive to Helium in the wireless space, right? That's
Yeah, I would say maybe you could simplify it by saying that if you're earning a token for doing anything wireless that's not a Helium token, or you're burning Helium tokens in exchange for your own token, then that should be bad. That should be prevented at this stage.
I like how you said that, Chris. I think that looking at the token is a good way to define it.
If they start off one way, is there a way for anyone to shut them down if they kind of shift midstream? So if they're like, all right, you guys want us to do a blockchain, they do a blockchain, and we say yes, and then they're like, actually, we are the scum suck and rat fuckers you thought we were, and we're going to now compete with you. Is there a way for us to say like, all right, now that you're no longer abiding by the terms, we're turning off all your gateways?
No, the only thing that we can do is prevent them from onboarding new. We basically revoke their manufacturer, their HIP-19 grant or whatever allocation, so they can't onboard any new hotspots. Essentially, that's what we would do in that case.
But once that are in, we'll continue to work with all the changes they make.
Yep.
Hmm.
Yeah, we don't want to regulate that, because then that becomes, now we're, kicking things off the network.
Yep.
We really we don't want to be a part of that business.
That's
Which,
why
by the way,
I think we should always be more careful on the onboarding before accepting them, because after they're in, it's complicated.
Yeah, I think that if anybody is turning, again, if they're taking existing hotspots in the field and converting it to mine in a completely different blockchain, that's not an easy task as it is. So I don't even know in what cases that's exactly possible, other than a very complex, like coordinating across all of the end hosts to that, and to what if it's new firmware. I mean, you have to think about the fact of how you're actually managing keys if you're trying to implement a new blockchain to gateways that are in the field. Like, is that even possible?
Scott, I think we were talking more about they start with 2 blockchains, but then suddenly their blockchain changes and it's not so collaborative and starts to be competitive with ours. We won't be able to do anything about it, even if they start aggressively competing with Helium.
Yeah, I guess it's a case of like, so an example would be if Deeper ends up becoming a provider on the network and they switch from a VPN service into something that's around wireless coverage. Is that the right example that we're thinking of?
Deeper.
Yeah, that's why it's a trust issue. We have to trust the vendors in order to accept them. And honestly, with Revelfy, I don't think there's much trust going around. At least not with how they are dealing with all their information.
We're giving them the most press that they've had probably right now.
Okay, any other comments? So I feel like, do we have I feel like we've gotten to some like pretty clear criteria around if you're earning a token for anything wireless or burning HMT for some other token, that's a deal breaker. No blockchain without code. Ideally, we're looking for some established community if there is another blockchain in general. It's again just part of the vetting process, but I think that just the idea of the one that's pretty set, earning a token for anything wireless and just kind of making that kind of the predominant gatekeeper feels like very, very clear and objective criteria to me.
So is our official or semi-official statement going to be, if you are earning if you're earning tokens for anything wireless, then you can't join the Helium network?
It's at I think we want to say that the oversight committee can't, again, we can work on the language in this kind of separately, but I think that's just the committee is not, entertaining applications from a provider that is going to be mining a token for anything wireless or burning Helium otherwise.
I've been typing something up in the notes. Here's a concise statement, which is Helium is a wireless network and vendors are implicitly partners. And any partnership should be symbiotic and not parasitic. So the RevoFi scenario is an embryonic wireless network blockchain, which competes with Helium. So it would benefit RevoFi far more than it would benefit Helium in extending our network. And for that, we're not comfortable.
I would say benefit the Helium community.
Yeah.
Sure. As a potential loss, we're talking about some number of gateways not being onboarded and extending the network. We're comfortable with that loss in this scenario. There's still plenty of other manufacturers, far more than we're comfortable with helping to bootstrap a competing blockchain. Anyways, that's an idea.
Well, guys, sorry, I have to go. My flight is boarding, so happy to be here. See you next time.
No problem. Good to see you.
All right.
Safe travels.
Bye.
All right, so I think that we have, again, just checking in with existing committee members here between Brad, Jeremy, Patrick, You guys have the final votes on this one, so I just want to kind of make it official if we're making a decision on Revify.
Are we all comfortable that we can come up with wording, or is it really difficult? My vote's pretty much no, but I think I sense that amongst us, we're afraid of like making a vote without having a defensible position. And if that's the case, then I want to know that because it's important that we can provide really our reasoning and are comfortable with that and that it doesn't shift.
I like the way Scott said, not currently considering applications for those blockchains that mine on RF. It opens the door to future opportunity to do so. We don't have to be too elaborate, my opinion. I say we, I'm an observer. So.
No, I like this, Jamie, but it's also important kind of saying that this is not with prejudice decision. This is without prejudice decision. Is that what we're advocating? Does everybody understand the difference of those legal terms?
No, please.
Okay. With prejudice means basically the ruling is stuck and you can't come back and ask for a re-ruling if the situation changes. Or without prejudice means, look, as it currently stands, we're not comfortable with the scenario, but you are free to reapply under new circumstances.
Yeah.
Okay, so playing devil's advocate, if they reapplied and said like, oh, we're now a non-wireless blockchain, when they're clearly doing like, I'm just kind of thinking like worst case, if they're working super hard to piggyback off Helium, which it looks like they are, it doesn't seem like it's that big of a lift for them to make some changes on their website and then reapply. And then we don't really have a place to stand. I think that whole volume for blockchain thing is probably an interesting idea too, as a bar.
I think we should just reframe the response saying that, hey, we have decided collectively that we are not going to accept any new blockchains that don't have a certain number of volume of transactions and certain community and code public and stuff like that. And just make that the reason that we decided. We don't have to talk about wireless. We don't have to talk about anything. We just put the burden that like we need the blockchain to be in existence and we need to see that there's an adequate community and that there's adequate code and adequate security. And until that happens.
But I think the wireless needs to be in there too. I think it needs to be all three. It's like, these are the three criteria.
Well, the reason why I'm advocating, I mean, I think we should publish that as criteria, but for their rejection, because they're going to argue and debate that, oh, it's not wireless. Like,
okay.
I don't want to butt heads with them. What I want to do is have a very strict line that like they can't pass until they cross that line. And so I don't want to leave it for debate, but I do think you're right. I do think that we should publish these criteria overall, but let's just reject them because their blockchain is it's not on mainnet. There's no code, there's nothing. And for now, we're not going to accept them, and we're not going to accept them even if they don't release, they decide not to release a blockchain just because, we don't know what they're going to do.
But so I think what's the threshold of users or activity, right? Because in theory, obviously they don't have any source code, they don't have anything today, but they could go fix that in a reasonable amount of time and still have no users and no community and come back and say, hey, now we want to do this again, right? They can even change it so it's not wireless, right?
Yeah, I would say that we make it that they have to be on an exchange. They have to be on some public exchange.
Oh, okay, that's good. So is Deeper on a public exchange?
I don't know. But
I was about to play this following scenario. Hey, Chris Bruce, this is Jeremy Cooper with Fox News correspondent. Earlier, your committee ruled on a blockchain called Revify, and you gave the reasons for denying on the following factors. And today, you've approved this another company called Deeper Network. Could you explain the differences between the two approaches? Anyways, that's the part I want to bring up next. We've got to use our same criteria consistently.
Well, let's talk about Deeper next and then revisit this because I think it
okay.
may add insight. I think this is
I'm totally fine with that as long as we're moving things forward, and that would help move the agenda.
Yeah, I mean, Deeper was already voted on.
Oh, good.
So
are we in a bind now?
You all voted last week to accept them. So just
are they? Do they have a mainnet?
Do they have a what?
Is there a blockchain running on a mainnet?
I don't know.
Yeah, that's one of the criteria we have to be careful about.
Chris,
I don't even know what that means. What does that mean? What do you mean?
Do they have a blockchain running? Do they have one out of test mode?
publicly available for use.
Deeper is listed on Uniswap, by the way.
That's good enough for me.
Okay,
So that means
There's a
they're
bullet
public.
point.
Yeah, they're public. They have a mainnet, supposedly.
And they do not, their blockchain is not involved with wireless communication. Can we say that as well?
Yeah.
network security.
I mean, it's involved with communication. It's more like an alternative VPN, right?
Yes.
But I wouldn't classify it as in the same vein as what Helium's doing in wireless communication.
Yeah,
It's
I think the distinction should be that anytime the word wireless is mentioned anywhere in their white paper or any kind of thing, that we will take a very careful eye on it to see if it's competitive. Like I don't know how to, yeah, I don't know if we can stipulate all the rules just yet, but like I think for them, I still don't think that's the reason why we 100% reject RevoFi, is because the wireless aspect. I think we reject them because I don't know what they're going to do. They can say whatever they want right now, but until they have a public blockchain, like they can do anything that they want. They can tell us today that they don't do Wi-Fi or they don't do wireless, and then once a blockchain comes out, it's got wireless magically in it. And so that's one of the main baseline criteria. Is the two things: is A, we can't confirm what they promise until there's a public blockchain, and B, then if they had a public blockchain today, then I would like to scrutinize just the wireless stuff that the blockchain does. But right now, there's no proof that it's going to do what they say it is until it's public. So I think that's the number one criteria I would say that we reject them for. And then we also add that once you have the blockchain up and running, we're going to look at the wireless piece of it and see if it's competitive. And then we would rule again.
Like that idea, that is certainly one thing we really cannot confirm what they're planning to do with their blockchain. And without running a committed chain, they can literally do whatever they want at any moment.
So they claim they have 50,000 community. I'm talking about Deeper. I'm just looking at their latest 50,000 community members. They claim.
Well, they're already kind of committed to a chain. I think that's one helpful point, right? That
Yeah, I was trying to find their GitHub also, just to kind of actually take a look at like how many like what's the size of the community as far as like actual technical contributions also.
I mean, what if they meet 2 out of 3 of those things, and you can sneak deeper into there and also use it as a block for RevoFi? So if there's like blockchain listed, a functioning blockchain, and then some kind of volume, like if you meet 2 out of 3 of those, you're fine. Maybe there's not a way to meet some 2, but not meet the third, but that makes it easier to say like, oh yeah, Deeper's in because they hit 2 of those things. They're listed and they have a blockchain. So you don't need to worry about volume or whatever it breaks down to.
it seems to me if we're comfortable with, if we're comfortable that we're uncomfortable, we should be able to name what it is we're uncomfortable about easily. And we should be aiming at that rather than trying to figure out these other things that seem to be proxies for what we're really uncomfortable with. Am I hitting the mark there?
Well, I just Deeper has built something. They have a community, right? It seems to have a purpose. It's not directly competitive with Helium. RevoFi has not built anything yet. They have no community, and they seem to be purely piggybacking on Helium. So yeah. I don't know how to put that in
competitive with Helium seems to be a really defensible point. That's the one thing that we can clearly say, but we seem to be not comfortable about saying that. If we could get over our discomfort with that.
I don't even know if it's necessarily, right? I wouldn't even say it's necessarily like to say competitive with Helium, more so the fact of there is like there's a risk vector, the risk vector that exists of another token that is earning on providing any type of wireless coverage. So if you're sitting with a gateway that is providing 2 tokens, both for wireless coverage, you're in the same geography, you're in the same area. If that token or that other ecosystem decides to expand, or is it forked off by again, like it's almost effective. You can say, look, RevoFi, we're not necessarily saying that this is anti-RevoFi, but if somebody else looks RevoFi and now all those gateways that are earning those tokens, there's a potential for the network to lose value, and it harms the community and the other manufacturers in the network because that token is now being usurped for the exact same use.
But they're gonna come back and say that their token isn't for wireless. Their token is for providing cloud services and edge hardware. You know what I mean? So
Well, that's why I think it's an and, not an or. I think
yeah,
it's
I'm punting a little bit because I look at their white paper. It's
Yep.
extremely hard to discern what the hell they're doing, like honestly.
yeah,
And so
which
what I'm
is
saying
what-
is instead of debate that, let's just say, look, we can't fundamentally know what you're doing until your blockchain is public.
Okay.
There's an exchange, you know.
I think I
think
have a
it's-
resolution here, which is
Yeah, I think-
basically this
right.
could be a without prejudice decision saying, look, we have no idea what you're doing, but it's important for us to know. You've got to come back more firmly with an actual blockchain that we can all understand.
But I
This
think
is
that
just
but I think this is where you have to like what hypothetically they come back in 6 months like, okay, we're up, we're launched, it's live, there's a usable blockchain, and then we reject them yet. Like that's why I think this is an and statement here of a number one, you need a blockchain that exists with code that is on mainnet and ideally also on an exchange where you have already you've already going and building out a community that sees value in the work that you're doing. That's part one, but and it can't be something that is also harmful to the community because it is also earning on wireless services or wireless coverage. So I think that if you put those two things together, like that's it.
we make it an and because we're going to set a precedence for item number one, which Revo can solve. They can get a blockchain up and running. So in this particular case, it's not that they don't have it up and running. It's because they're a competitor, that their design looks to be competitive. Because you think about it, right? We've already admitted in 6 months they can come back and fix issue number one. So this is not an and statement. That's a true with an and with another operator we don't know. That resolves to basically the other operator we don't know in an optimization process. So
I think that
I'm
we
okay
can
making
come-
both statements, but
Yeah.
the first one's important for setting precedent for anybody else who wants to come with something that's non-competitive. We're still going to require them to have a blockchain that we can look at.
Yeah.
In this
So I
case,
think
it's
that-
because it's competitive. That's the issue.
So Brad and Patrick, how do you, I mean, kind of getting with the other guys, like, how do you feel about the idea that those two are criteria that are living together as far as what the precedent is being set?
No, I agree with that.
Yeah, I think having public auditable mainnet blockchain it's easy. It's very measurable. I think having a token on an exchange is one. And again, I'm with Jeremy that we're in the without prejudice mode right here until we get better clarity. But at least at this point in time, right? Not having wait a second. At this point in time, I'm comfortable with the decision, and I think there are some things that are very clearly that can be a litmus test that can start to build the long-term prejudice criteria. There's some other things that are still a little bit gray, and we need to go through a few more of these scenarios to, I think, solidify those.
Yeah, can we just add that that the exchange piece should maybe be, they should be on exchange tracked by coin market cap or coin gecko. Because if they're listed on one of those, then I feel a little bit confident that the public can evaluate the price and there's enough information there. So I would make that the minimum criteria for not only being mainnet, but also being listed on one of these sort of Oracle price exchange, aggregators or something. But like Deeper is on coin market cap and it has all of its markets listed. So I think if coin market cap or coin gecko is able to track those exchanges and they're on one of those exchanges, then I think that's an okay criteria.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's good.
Yeah.
So I have, again, just not to beat a dead horse here, I have got blockchain on mainnet on an exchange tracked by CoinMarketCap or CoinGecko, not earning a token for providing wireless coverage. Is there anything else that we feel like that is, at least for now? I know we've talked about performance, but I think we should punt on that one, or at least for now.
The
But
blockchain
those
should be public. It should be public. Source code should
Public
be
and-
available to public.
Okay. And those are the three pieces of criteria that I have, that I feel like we can set. Having those three as precedent, I personally feel comfortable, but I also don't vote on this committee.
No, but I like this.
I was gonna say, we can clarify the wireless. Why don't we just say that, that the token cannot be earned for any wireless communication. Or without prior approval from us or something. Like, we could maybe make an exception if we feel it's not competitive, but we can just put a blanket statement that any token earned for any type of wireless communication will also be prevented.
This is DY for a reason.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
now the issue here, if they fixed all three of these things, they literally bootstrapped the blockchain, made it autopublical, got it on to CoinGecko, that it's enough traction, and this blockchain does not have wireless communication component.
Yep.
Would they be free to
Yep.
reapply?
Yes.
Yes, if it was like cloud services and it was like very, very clear what that's being used for, and we can again do a deeper dive, I think that those three, I feel very comfortable with those three.
And I'm just gonna have one more picky question. You know, in the past, we have denied, we put someone on 6-month waiting list. I can't remember who the heck they were. Anybody want to chime in? That was a company that was so horrible. It
sorry,
wasn't necessarily that didn't have blockchain and everything else, but we felt
They were
mistrustful.
marketing without approval and
Yeah.
being
Yeah.
honest.
So things that are with prejudice are your entity is so mistrustful that we don't believe we can trust you going forward with anything. So in this case, we're not necessarily saying that they're so mistrustful that we don't think they can do all three, but there are cases in which you could do all three of these and we still are not trustful of you.
Yes, but
I want to reserve the right
I-
to refuse on those.
I think that we have used that in the past. I think for this case, that's almost, I don't know if that's even necessarily relevant. I know that we have circumstances that we are subjectively not sure about how they've been as far as behavior. I don't know if that needs to be part of the discussion.
No, I'm just bringing it up as a
Yeah.
questioning point when someone digs deeper, which they may do.
Yeah,
Be prepared
yeah,
to
the
answer
committee
those
again,
additional questions.
in order to, in terms of protecting the network and the community, where, pre-orders have been something that were clearly defined. Again, like we kind of go back to what happened last time. The process is defined, it's transparent, it's available to the public, and any manufacturer applicant that comes in that does things that are not in the spirit of the guidelines, we can't, we have a precedent of either you're delayed for this many months because every other applicant is following the process appropriately.
Yeah, good. I like that wording. Thank you for coming up with something.
Yep.
All right. Well, I think at this point, it's really, do we have an official vote? Are we comfortable doing that? Were you going to say something, Scott?
Nope, I was just gonna say, I would love to move on if we feel like we've
Yeah.
come to a good criteria that.
I think we have. So,
current
yeah, my
committee is
official vote is
voting.
no, it's without prejudice for these three reasons. Totally comfortable with that. Brad
I agree.
and
Patrick?
And I agree too. Thank you.
and of course, we're missing Phil, but I think that is a quorum.
The
Okay,
result. Thank you, guys.
welcome. Thank you for.
Am I the person that communicates this to them?
I think it's been
Let's-
falling upon me. Yeah, I'm gonna post it
Um,
maybe in the channel so we can make a statement, but
Yeah, I was gonna say
Happy
it should
anybody.
be public, right? We should.
Yeah,
that's
this should be
absolutely has to
public.
be.
Okay.
Yeah, but
perfect, 'cause-
we should also let them know privately
Yeah,
at a time.
sure.
Yeah,
So
Let's,
certainly I'll work with you on that.
Okay.
thank you, Sophie.
That does mean that anything that we announce today, we're gonna have to delay it until they get a notice.
I
It'd
think
be
we can,
kinda weird to do.
yeah, you should try and talk to them, see if you can do a call one-on-one with them.
Okay.
And then say, hey, we'll give you like, 24 hours or something to make your own statement or whatever.
Mhm.
And then we're gonna publicly post it. Whatever. I don't know. Just give them a deadline.
Yeah.
Try and deliver
That's
the
fair.
news in person if you can.
Yep,
I
I
mean, not
agree.
face to face, but Zoom. And then just try and explain why and say, hey, look, you're able to come back, but these are just the hard criteria that we decided.
I told them that we were discussing this today. So they should
Cool.
expect a resolution within, sometime early in this week.
All right. Thanks for
Okay,
helping with
moving
that.
on.
Great. We are at
Deep.
I think we're at voting.
All right. Oh boy, oh my goodness, Freedom 5. All right, so there's a potential problem with Freedom 5. I've been talking with them about this today. It's not major. It's going to end up probably being a little bit better than Curlink. If everyone remembers, we found a flaw in Curlink's onboarding process that they're going to fix with a firmware update in the field. That does leave them open to risk that someone can actually onboard some keys which are not bound to hardware. Similar problem exists for Freedom 5. There's a chance that because they haven't yet manufactured, or they may be able to get all of these units patched before going out, but essentially they did a really good job of integrating their TPM, but security is a chain, just like a blockchain. And they missed a very important first point, which is they were going to allow the keys to be generated on the hotspot when it is received by the end user, the end customer, and then send the generated key up to the onboarding server. Not everyone has to understand the onboarding server, staking server, but anyways, that left open a hole where a hacker like me could get a hold of the device, generate whatever swarm key they like, communicate that up via whatever channel they had proposed, because it's still not secure, and end up with a key that is not in the secure element. So they've recognized this flaw. It comes down to them. Their manufacturer who makes these devices is going to be the one who's going to do the onboarding. We need that manufacturer to tell us what key was generated before it leaves the manual, or at some point before it's onboarded. We cannot let the end user be in charge of telling the system what the public key is. So everything else, the system looks good. If they fix that flaw, they should be free to continue. But it's kind of part of the auditing process. So they're kind of, I would say their audit has failed at the moment. If they can prove to us that they will fix this, and there's a good chance that they can, we should be okay. I'm totally fine with everything else about their system. So that's my update.
So are the units already manufactured, sitting in a warehouse somewhere, where they have yet to manufacture the units?
I asked them if they could, if this is a problem, they're like, hey, have these, are you no longer in control of these units? He said, no, this is just a matter of communicating with their manufacturer to get some communication channel going.
So it sounds like,
but I will make it clear to them that like, hey, this, you have to have physical control of this to patch these, right? We need that element. I will verify with them, but it's possible they have, but it seems quite likely that no, they haven't.
So it sounds to me like there's no real change in the hardware. It's just they have to add a personalization step in their manufacturing flow, like the other manufacturers are doing. So
exactly, it's a misstep in personalization. Okay. For those of you who are in the manufacturing space, personalization has a very specific meaning, and that's what this is. But otherwise, do we have a report on their block? We have an audit, right? And they passed the radio part and the blockchain tests. Is that correct, Sophie?
They should have been. I mean, yeah, I'm pretty sure they did.
I looked at the folder. I mean, it's a slightly different test because it's a TPM, script but it said it passed in the screen capture that's in the folder. Yeah,
so I did query them to really look at the code that they're supposedly running, and this is a trust issue. So if they're running the code they did, I looked at the way they generated on the TPM, it is correct, but there's just a final step. How do we ensure that the key given to the onboarding server was actually generated by the TPM?
So where, Jeremy, just out of curiosity, where was that left with them as far as like next steps to repair and work on that?
Yeah, let me go check on that channel. This happens here on the Helium. So Helium has a set of internal, external channels that they use helping vendors manufacture things and all of that. So right now we've got an individual named JPad, who kind of seems to be sort of the manager in charge of this, and was also talking with
it's Joey, yeah.
Okay, Joey, and Igor, who's sort of their coder. It's great to have both of them on that channel. I just told them, look, we have to solve this hole. We need some trusted authority to attest to the generation of the key on the TPM. That's the manufacturer, that's fine. If that's you guys, it's fine, but it has to be done by someone in physical possession of it before it leaves the factory. That's the only two entities we trust. So they're exploring two options. One is a manufacturer image. Manufacturing plant sends the pub key straight to the DY server service, which is essentially what we've done for all of the manufacturers. Coco is usually in charge of that, I believe. Or the manufacturer, I had to translate from bad English. The manufacturer signs that attested key with a private key of their own that Freedom 5 will then check that the signature is correct and if it matches, they will send the onboarding key to the DY server. That's essentially the same thing. Those are just two different cryptographic approaches for how you get the key to be attested by the manufacturer. They can do it themselves via like an SSL connection, or if they don't have that facility in the manufacturing place, they can at least sign the key that they generated, put it on a block store there. Then when the miner boots up, it contacts FreedomFi server and says, hey, here's a signed version of my key. Can I onboard? FreedomFi double checks that it matches the signature that they need. And then they can be assured that the manufacturer is the one who generated the key. That's the short version of that. So they are exploring those options. And I think they understand if we tell them, look, we've got a delay, we can probably do an async vote, or we can kind of say, we approve, but you have to solve your audit. And we can just say, this is an audit issue that needs to be solved. And once that audit issue is solved, then they're free to publicly take pre-orders. Is everyone comfortable with that?
Yeah, I mean, there's no flaw in the hardware. There's no flaw in the software. It's really just there's a missing step in the manufacturing flow.
That's correct, but it is an important step. I mean, if they were to ship them with this step in there, it'd be a total failure.
So in terms of like delaying to us get together again, I think as long as they satisfy that manufacturing step requirement with you, Jeremy, then is there a reason we can't vote?
That's what I'm getting at. I'm okay with you guys. If you guys are okay with delegating me to have the final check mark to say, Jeremy's given the role to purely say whether this issue is solved, and if that is solved, the whole committee is fine.
They also don't have FCC, so you're voting on FCC.
Oh, well, we have to see FCC. So if they
yes, of course. So it's voting on these two things pending, and we can set up an async vote in a couple weeks when they have their FCC and they've satisfied the manufacturing flaw for Jeremy, to Jeremy's satisfaction.
Yeah, this sounds great. Just trying to think how we technically manage this. We have done that before with who else was waiting for FCC?
We've done that. We've done that at Codex. Yeah. Can sell everywhere but the US right now.
Right, exactly. So
I think that, yeah, once we get the FCC, I think we're just kind of waiting on the two updates of once we get the FCC cert, and then once we actually have a follow-up from the FreedomFi team on the on key management here, I feel like we can do the async vote and not have to wait a month. We just need to wait on those two updates.
Yeah, so my update is basically their security system looks sound except for this flaw, which can be fixed, and they will need to fix it.
All right, I think we got clear path on that one.
Cool. Heltec? Anybody have any opinions? I guess I will. It looks like they
got a nice shiny box, that's for sure.
Looks like an iMac, old style iMac.
Jeremy, did you sign off on this audit?
Did you see me sign off? I can't even keep track of what I've seen.
You were online with me and Lewis for both Heltec and
that's right. Yeah. So from security side, it's using a standard ECC 608. Totally fine, assuming they're onboarding the way that everyone else onboards. Now that I'm more intimately involved in ways people can onboard badly, I am somewhat curious. I hope Helium has covered that with them. I don't see any reason to deny them. They have a quad core A53, which is essentially the same as Bobcat, everyone. I think they have 2 gigs of RAM though, which is better than Bobcat. So we felt as the auditors, again, that was Sophie and Lois, and then sort of me chiming in, that they would be fine. We didn't necessarily need to do blockchain test. I think maybe we later end up doing that anyways though, just to confirm. But I don't see any particular problems with this one. There's one issue here. May not be our issue, but we should be prepared for some shout downs about this. They apparently went into FCC certification with a regular SMA connector, and we know.
No, I sent them a warning, and no, they did go in. I sent them a warning. They came back and said, yeah, their FCC people said we had to change the SMA connector, and they sent me a picture of their new connector, which I'll update the audit file.
Yeah, I don't need to see it. I know the FCC can fail them, and since we do have FCC requirements, since you're going to sell in the US, it's just a potential thing we should be aware of if they were going to screw that up. Sounds like they got it solved. So I don't see any issues with them. I vote.
But have
they're
they
totally
passed
fine.
FCC yet?
Sophie?
Passed FCC?
I don't, let's see, hold on. No, they're gonna send it to Monday morning Beijing time. I haven't gotten it yet.
Right. So then we can't vote on them, right?
They're also pending FCC,
Okay.
but they have sent already CE, and I'm only really looking at FCC and CE. I'm not looking at UKCA, ICSRRC, which they don't need anyway. Like China doesn't require that. And what is CTIC?
Is that Japan? No.
I don't know. All
Hmm.
right, I'm gonna, you guys, I'm just gonna drop these certification names into the chat.
Great.
I probably said most of them wrong.
Yeah, I guess for health tech, my question is, can we approve them for any geographies where they either don't need certification isn't required, or they already have it? And we can just make sure that we include in the announcement that they are not yet FCC certified, so they cannot take pre-orders for US market. I was under the impression that's kind of like how we're handling these things in general of, if somebody is approved for one geography, we can approve them for that, but otherwise, making sure that it's very clear in the announcement that US is not yet satisfied and then updates will be coming. Or Europe, again, like we just make sure we flag which areas are not yet approved.
Yeah, we have done that in the past.
Yeah.
I think that's fine. I think, again, like I want to make sure that, if manufacturers are working with us, they are being honest, they are being like communicative, and it's just a case of they're approved in one region for the other. I'd love for them to be able to take to take actually sales, or take orders rather, for the geographies that they are compliant in as soon as possible.
Mhm.
Assuming that everything else is like passed, obviously, on audits and whatnot.
Yeah. All right.
So does Health Tech have anything, or Health Tech is not able to? We can't vote on that one.
Health Tech has sent over their CE already. These
Oh,
other
okay.
things, they don't need SRRC to sell into China. And then these other ones, I never saw them before. And I think that's out of our jurisdiction, right? I mean, do we check all the certifications?
ETIC is a standard for EMC, it says.
Sorry, Sophie, you said they sent a CE certification?
Yep.
Okay, so we could approve them for Europe.
Yep.
Assuming that everybody votes to approve. Okay, all right.
Yeah.
They do have some certifications. Okay.
Yeah, also for our other observers, I'm an observer too. I'm a bit of a loudmouth, but I don't get to vote either.
So is there any red flag aside from the FCC missing? Is there any other red flags with these guys? It seems like it's all okay.
I didn't see any. Has everybody had a chance to review it?
Yeah,
Patrick, haven't heard anything from you.
I looked at it. No, I looked at all 3 documents that Sophie shared, and I didn't see anything.
So approved for CE, but pending FCC.
That sounds good to me. Yeah. I'm just typing this in the notes since we're all kind of busy. Tech. Oh, someone's go. Oop, did I hit Q? Sorry. And you're cool with that as well, Patrick? His official vote?
Yes, yes.
All right.
Wonderful.
Approval. I'm just typing this up. We're going to come back. Okay. Hey, we might actually get some time. Next is Control Lino. I'm going up the 30th tab now for this. I'm sure I've read this audit several times. From what I can tell, it is your standard Raspberry Pi 4 using, and I can't read through the graphics in there, but it's a MCC 608, 32 gig card. Not certain what concentrator they're using. I don't know if that is too much. Maybe someone can comment on that. I don't see any particular issues. They passed the ECC provisioning test. We suspect, given their hardware specs, they should be totally fine until we hit light gateways. Right, 32 gigs is enough storage space, and as long as they really are running a Pi. Did we ever get an answer from them on how much RAM they're using? Is it a
Yeah, we did. The first unit that I audited was a Raspberry Pi 3, and then they upgraded to it. They sent another unit, which the pictures are in there. It's a Raspberry Pi 4, 2 gigabytes.
2? Okay. We've approved in the past. That is essentially the same as a Helium OGV2, I think. So I don't see any objections here. One thing I do want to get into is, does everybody feel that they're okay sourcing enough that they're going to have a good concentrator? I can't really tell who their concentrator manufacturer is. I mean, clearly Semtech's involved, but I'd appreciate any opinions on whether that looks like a 2247.
Can you share what you're looking at?
Yeah, absolutely. Do you all have the Controlino? Is that
Oh, the Controlino that uses an
Yeah.
mbit. So that was my text earlier in the Discord. So they are showing an ECC, the ECC chip on top of their LoRaWAN concentrator card, which kind of surprised me because that means that mbit must have customized our core cell design. So I'm trying to get more information out of the German FAE who covers.
So Patrick, where did you
Controlino.
draw that conclusion? Because it looks like there's an interposer board or a carrier board.
No,
So
in their documentation, they state and they circle the part. They say this is our ECC chip.
well, but I'm looking at the pictures. We're talking about this Controlino.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking at the picture on page. What is this? How many of the audit here? Page 5 of the audit, where the radio card is pulled off, and then there's this carrier board, and I think that's the ECC 608 chipset in there.
Actually, the thing you need to look at, Brad, is their instructions sent to DY to do the audit.
Yes. So
Okay.
in the data in the document from Sophie, she shows the back of the board, but the front of the board is completely covered with a metal shield. So
Right.
in the instructions, they say, this is our, hang on, let me go to that.
They actually take the cap off of the board and show you that the IC is underneath the shield.
They do.
So that means that ECC chip is on the core cell card, and you can see the antenna switch. You can see the two 1250s or 1257s there. So I'm trying to find out more, but I'm sure everybody's on vacation still. And
well, it's not a big issue necessarily. Yeah.
No,
to tell you the truth, that's actually a plus. Yeah. I think it's the first manufacturer I've ever seen that actually binds the ECC that tightly to the board, unlike Nebra, who made it a pluggable module, which is supposed to be a no-no. So I'm impressed in that way. But as we see some performance problems with Nebra, concentrators are starting to be an issue that we're getting dinged on.
Yeah.
I have
I'm wondering,
question for you guys. Does the shield need to? I wasn't able to get the shield off on Controlino. That's why I didn't.
Oh yeah, I don't think they'd be allowed to pass FCC if that was removable. That has to be on there to protect FCC Part 15 emanation requirements.
Oh, some of the others have been able to come off.
It depends how good your design is. If you have a little bit sloppy design, then you just put a shield on it and call it the day.
Okay.
Or electrical tape, if you've seen that. I'm sure Nick has seen that in his
The question is actually just very practical. When I take pictures of the inside of or if me or Lewis or Jeremy or anyone takes pictures, should we try to get the shield off, or does it not matter?
It can be helpful, but if you see that it's soldered on, don't attempt it.
Yeah, don't bother.
Grip up the board.
Okay.
You can always ask them, it's probably good to just ask them for a picture. Hey, send me a picture of a card without the shield, right?
Often in their FCC report, they will be required to take pictures with shields off.
Oh, that's true.
So that's a third point we can get at, although that comes out after we vote. So, well, not typically. Anyways, it's a curiosity item. I think they did that in this case on their end though, because they did need to show where the ECC chip was and it happens to be under the shield. So I'm okay approving them if there's a pretty good chance that that concentrator is going to work, you know, since they clearly have gotten in touch with Semtech enough to get a customized core cell, whatever you call that.
Yeah.
I'm cool with it.
So what about
go
test
ahead.
results for these guys? Do they have same question, CE, FCC tests?
They only have CE. They have not, they're going to go for FCC and RCM for Australia, but they're not there yet. I mean, that's not in the very immediate roadmap for them. Right now, they just want to sell into Europe.
Okay.
And their radio audit, the survey of their config file looks like it's going to pass EU 868. 120 channels. No one identified any issues with the uplink downlink channel selection.
No.
Cool. And that's what that tool that Lewis gave you does, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Awesome.
The radio config, the Rust thing.
Yep. Cool. Let me look one more pass here. Just double checking. They basically have a hat. Did they not give you an enclosure? Oh, they did. Okay. Oh my goodness. Soldered wire straight from the DC connector onto the Pi hat. I've seen worse. That's something they can change over time. Do you see that, Brad?
Yeah.
The first two pictures are, I just left them there from version 1. The rest of the pictures are the upgraded one.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, I think that may be. Well, no, the first two pictures are just simply the box and the power supply and the antenna. But I'm talking about picture 3, 4, 5 on page.
Yeah, those are all from, yeah.
The latest. If they got the prowess to do that, that means someone is hand soldering those in, but those connections should be pretty solid. I don't think you could have a major recall issue. Why does it look like they have 2 carrier?
Our outside our mandate, right?
Yeah, that's true. Okay, I love to hear that because I'm getting so much push from people in the channels like, oh, the build quality and blah, blah, blah.
Like, we're not here to honestly critique or endorse the quality of the design, the enclosure, the antenna performance,
we will have to revisit this though. I mean, there may be a potential HIP 19 amendment if the community gets together in some form. I just want everyone to be prepared. But yeah, let's punt on that. Looks good. I vote okay, as long as they get final approval for the markets they intend to sell in.
Right. So you already have the EC the CE test. It sounded like Sophie, right?
Yes, that's right.
Okay. Yeah, I don't have a reason to not approve them. They have the ECC 608. The fact it's on the 1302 card is not a problem, right?
Yeah.
I don't think that there's any issue there. So I would vote yes unless somebody has information.
Question, this is probably a stupid one. There's no difference between a wait list and there is a difference between wait list and pre-orders as far as you guys are looking at this, right?
My understanding is money. It comes down to money.
Check. So they got this wait list, but they're not taking money. Although on their GitHub, they say payment methods available are XYZ, which may mean in the future you can pay with those, but just something to look at. So I know
Thank you for bringing that up. That's important.
Yeah, as long as you shouldn't be able to go to their website and order. So if we go to their website and add ourselves to the wait list, it shouldn't ask me for money.
Yeah. Check.
I think Patrick.
No, I vote yes as well. So.
All right. Someone record it. Ship it. With approval.
Yeah.
Good. Hey, we got 15 minutes left. I think we're maybe on record. I've got so many tabs open. I can't remember where we're going next. All right. So looks like Rising HF, someone's put TBD. Who wrote the TBD?
I did because
okay.
we failed them twice because their firmware was not updated, like couldn't get in, et cetera, et cetera. Anyway. And they don't have, like everybody else who messes something else up with firmware, they just do it, over the air, like, they just do it. But instead, they sent us a burner file, a burner firmware, like it just like a whole thing. And Lewis and I were just
Sure.
like, no.
All right, so their audit is still in progress, unfortunately, I guess is how we have to say this one.
We could even take them off. I just thought we might get to it this morning.
Good. No, no problem. All right. Well, these remaining two agenda items are not necessarily voting items. Is that correct?
That's right. And HIP 22 doesn't even, I'm going to just take that off.
Okay. Well, it might be worth it if we have everyone here for me to kind of give an update on what that is. I know it's a thing that if Lewis was here, he could give more, but I can be his proxy since he and I are kind of cool on this idea. But let me just double check here what is also going on with Bobcat. So again, we'll call this informative, but not voting required stuff. I'll try to summarize for people. Just make you dig that up, Sophie. So what is Bobcat proposing here? They're proposing an alternative to the ECC 608. I guess you're gonna depend on me to kind of tell you what that is. What is it gonna be? They haven't quite said. Okay, currently using ECC 608. They are proposing a chip from Shanghai Dongxing Microelectronics. It'll be similar. They're welcome to do that. I'm a little distrustful of Chinese parts from working in the industry. A lot of things that I've been personally made, worked on, got cloned in China. Of course, that is not an indictment against the whole country. But one of the things I just want everyone to consider, whenever you've got alternative security chips, the reason why the microchip, formerly Atmel ECC 608, is trustworthy is because there's a lot of other companies who put extreme requirements on those big smart card manufacturers and such. And so can kind of trust them that they've done their due diligence, that the chip is not breakable or it takes a significant amount. The problem with using an alternative chip, especially one from a manufacturer you have no idea, they may not necessarily be under the same pressure to provide the security features. They will certainly be under the pressure to make certain their algorithms are correct, but security is also a preventative measure, which is meaning you got to make certain that the chip's not hackable. And the market doesn't, unless there's market pressure to do that, you'll find someone who makes a completely compatible chip that speaks all the right protocols, but also has like a secret backdoor read command, which you don't want to have. So that's my biggest fear. We'll get more details. I'll try to take a look into it and see if anybody's at least done any research about this particular chip. So just want everyone to be prepared that I'm going to be kind of a stickler and say, hey, what proof do you have from the manufacturer this has been really held up to some of the higher security standards? You have lower security standards here, which is functional correctness. We need security measures, but that's what Bobcat's proposing to do. The funny thing is Bobcat should be told, hey guys, why don't you just do trust zone? I know you can do trust zone with your board. Why are you messing around with this? So I may communicate that to them if anyone's comfortable with that. Again, that's what Curling's going for. I would sometimes feel better with a trust zone implementation than an unknown crypto key, but I'll provide you guys an update later.
Jeremy, who's been most in touch with, I connect with Bobcat for several reasons, but on the technical side, is it typically Lewis, or have you guys been working with them together on the implementation here?
I've never actually communicated with them on a security thing because
Okay,
they came in before we were even a thing. So my best channel is probably through Lewis, but anybody can start the conversation with them. It'd be great if someone says, hey, look, we have approved alternative security implementations that use Trust Zone. Jeremy's pretty certain that you guys can do it because Jeremy has hacked the Bobcat and looked how they do things, but don't say that. So if they might just have an easier time doing that since we've already done one of those potentially with Curling.
You want me to talk to them? Because they're like talking to me like daily about this.
Sure. Absolutely.
Should I put them in touch with you or just suggest that they do Trust Zone and give them like lists?
I would ask perhaps if we have an internal external Helium channel, which I'm sure they do, that I can just be added to that the same way we're doing for Freedom Fi. anybody who's doing an alternative that we can hash it out there. Helium can see it. Anybody can chime in. I'd rather it be. I'm really wary of ex parte communications between me and anybody like who's under review. I'd like it to be really public.
Yep. Okay. All right. So that's, yeah, that conversation can be taken offline. Anything else that I feel like, did we get through the entire agenda?
Then we got one more HIP 22 update.
Oh, right. Before we get there,
Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to check in, Nick, Jameson, just as far as like feedback on process today, just kind of curious, we've been in here chatting for about an hour and 20. If you guys have any thoughts on the process, anything that you guys just, would like to have, while you're here, just feedback in general, whether that's about the committee, about the process, anything that you'd like to see improved or like new things that you're taking away from today, just would love to hear from you guys.
So it's great. I mean, this is a really cool conversation to be part of. I think everybody here has the right goals in mind to see the growth of the Helium ecosystem, decentralized wireless ecosystem. And it sounds like everybody has ethics at the forefront of their mind as they engage in the evaluation process, which I find refreshing personally. So yeah, I think coming from a big company, I'm always interested in process, because the more we can hand off to process, the more we can scale. So it's sounding a little analog today, which is the nature of the community and the state we're in and the stage of the growth. But over time, that would be my ambition for joining the MOOC, is how can we build processes into the documentation, into the application, and into the approval process to help it scale. And yeah, excited to be here, just to be playing a role. I'm long on Helium. I've got more HNP than I care to admit. I'm really interested to see this to fruition. It's going to be an exciting time. So.
Great.
But I love the use of Google Docs and collaboration software. That's awesome too. Real-time simultaneous editing to align on verbiage is critical. I love that we're doing that. So.
Cool.
My ignorance is just as stunning as I thought it would be, so I'm sure I'll rely on Jeremy later to figure out a lot of what you guys said. But yeah, I think this is it's super curious stuff and worth explaining and distilling down like why these decisions are being made the way they are. Because I can see that even if I don't understand all of the words, I can see why you guys are going this way. And yeah, to Jameson's point, just watching like, all right, this is a decision being made ethically and for decent reasons. That's a fun thing to explain to people who may not want to read more than a couple words.
Great. No, appreciate the thoughts from both of you guys. Obviously, if there's anything else, feel free if you want to take something offline or kind of discuss more one-to-one. Ping anybody in the committee. If you want to talk more DY stuff, come to Sophie or I. One thing I just do want to touch on is not something that's fully fleshed out for today, and I know we're getting tight on time, but I want to start to think about more about like role-specific stuff within this committee, that as we are kind of growing the group a little bit more, and that we can maybe do a little bit more specialization rather than kind of generalist across the board. I think everybody brings something a little bit different here, so people can start to own specific aspects of the committee and its responsibilities. Nick, only because you're on here, like comms is one thing that I think having somebody owning more of that, that's a big piece. But also as far as how we are thinking about a standards doc, if somebody's owning that, like I think we can discuss this a little bit more, again, like async in the Discord channel, but at least I want to start to put in people's brains of what Brad and what Patrick bring. They have very specific, their backgrounds and their expertise versus what Jeremy brings. Everybody, it's all additive. It's fantastic, and I'm thrilled to see this group continue to grow. But I think we're going to start to get to the point, basically now in my view of like, let's start to actually like have like more preset kind of assignment responsibilities. And for some, it's going to be more than others. I don't think it has to be completely even. Everybody has different commitments. So I want to make sure that we're fair on this, but everybody's contributing in a way that's valuable. So we'll have more kind of next meeting on it, but we can always discuss that in Discord too.
Yeah, I totally like that idea. It actually allows us to be a lot more efficient too, because you kind of delegate some stuff and then just come back with your report for the things that and we all vote on that. I really We've already been doing that in many ways, so making that more official.
I think so, yeah, just formalizing it. That was it for me, sorry.
Cool. So we just got HIP 22 update on here. Quick poll in a couple sentences. Can everybody describe what HIP 22 means to them? Just 2 sentences. Make certain we're all good.
It's basically putting a gateway in a module, right? Is that the plan?
HIP
Okay,
22 means freedom for the rest of us to actually have time to go do something
I was about to say
enjoyable.
it's time back for the committee.
All right, well, it's just for the uninitiated. It's an extension to HIP 19, which kind of removes any specific manufacturer, but actually replaces with another. The idea is that we can kind of get back to half of what made DIY so super popular, which is that if we could make a trustable element, which is a radio and security chip combined, and someone can make that en masse, people could go back to putting their own gateways together. As long as you take this trusted part and plug it in with a regular Raspberry Pi or any other Rock Pi or any other chip like that, it might open the floodgates, but it does take significant design. It takes ownership of it too. DY or some super trusted entity would be in charge of the firmware on this device. It would have to be manufactured by someone with the capability to do a full tape out, at least some sort of integration that the community would feel is pretty secure. And but it's kind of up in the air. There's one proposal by someone who Scott Lewis and I have talked to in Boston. I cannot remember his name. Chime in if you can, Scott.
Yep, sorry, I was on mute. That's Paul's saucy, but I think we're actually waiting for some feedback from the core devs on that to see how implementable that is. But no, still.
So there are 2 ways it could be implemented. One would require actually blockchain update in order to support the packages themselves being signed rather than the way witness receipts are done right now. The other way is a little bit less secure, but more compatible. So that's what's kind of before the core dev. So there's no real major update on that, but it's an exciting thing we should all be thinking about. Technically, I guess HIP 22 would have to be approved separately for that to do. And it's not even clear if the MOC would be involved, likely, but there's some hope that some of the backlog that we see in manufacturing could be solved by this, and community get really excited, some of the DIY people. But to be honest, there's really, you still have to get this chip from someone, and not anybody can make it.
Yes, ideally, Semtech needs to integrate a secure element in their 1302 chip. That way, every packet is signed, and it's not been messed with, right? So, really, and who knows? Maybe I can convince somebody at Semtech to do that. You mentioned floodgates opening. I think the floodgates are already open. We just got an order for $9 million for I think about 1 million gateway chips. I'm not going to tell you who it's from, but I was like, what? This is crazy.
Patrick and Jeremy, the thing I'll say from the semiconductor side, whoever does the secure element here, whether it's Semtech or somebody else, they have to be involved very early in the process and be able to launch a chip in volume to coincide with this reference design, or else we really don't solve a problem, right? Because,
correct.
And so I guess the question I have with these proposals, and I know there was a little bit of dialogue with Semtech. We brainstormed some ideas with Lewis. But if we're not working closely with a semiconductor partner now, I struggle to see how this thing becomes impactful in the real world.
Well, and with that, I think maybe we should table this because there's actually something more important. I think we should have, has anybody from Microchip gotten back to us about the provisioned chip?
Yeah, I was going to ask about the status. Has there been, we had a really good call with Microchip on pre-provisioned. Is there any progress on that with the DY?
I haven't heard back. Let me see if I have. I don't think.
Okay, I just want to make certain it wasn't something that we were sitting on.
Oh, this is hysterical. Guess what? I just got an email from them 12 minutes ago while we were on this call.
That's funny.
Can you, let us know.
Yeah, I'm going to forward that along. Yes, this somehow just went just to me. So I will.
I'll try to give a quick background summary. So Microchip notices extreme volume for this ECC 608, and they finally nailed it down. Oh, it's helium. So they would actually like to approach DY about making specific part number approved for helium, in which case they would actually, one, open up their channels, and like they're willing to sell more to helium than they are to other non-random places. It's a little confusing me, but that's what they've said. But another thing that's really kind of a benefit is they would be the ones who would pre-program the keys, and that would actually fix a possible hole where manufacturers could say they're programming the keys. Again, this is a common theme. They could say they're programming the keys, actually store them else somewhere. This would help. We could trust the microchip a little bit more, but it is kind of a private relationship. It'd be something that DY would kind of have to sign on. We've been talking about ways it's really not a burden on DY, because it really can't be seen as a friendly, any preferential treatment, and we can't make them the single source. So that was just a conversation, and still ongoing.
Just real quick, any update on light miners and like light miners that will be able to mine POC? So is the same ECC 608 security is going to be required on those, correct?
Correct.
Assuming.
Yeah, it's just simply moving the blockchain processing off of the miner.
So when because I expect there's going to be a flood of applications for light miners that are going to hit this committee as soon as the details are released. Do we have any kind of visibility into when we think that's going to happen?
I think the person who would know is Sophie, who had to jump off. From what I've heard, we kind of have been putting people, I haven't seen anybody apply under light. I think everyone's kind of afraid how long it's going to take. It's really kind of on Helium to provide the guidance. We're waiting on a couple of milestones on their development process before we can officially say it's done. If a manufacturer was smart, they would probably start applying now, given how they can kind of guess it is. But honestly, I think so far we haven't heard much, but only Sophie can say. So we'll have to hit her up on the channel.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm a little behind the update, so I'll check in on her. But yeah, I know that a couple of things have been pushed over there.
Guys, I gotta roll.
We're at
Yep.
time. Oh, sorry.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Nick. Appreciate it.
Cool.
Any final parting? We'll kind of follow up on everything around the light gateways, but anything else otherwise for today? I think we're good.
Yeah, all set.
Perfect. All right. Thank you all. Jameson, thanks for joining today. And we'll get this recording done and put into the notes, but we're all good. So thank you,
Thanks,
everybody.
everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
See you on the channel.
Have a
Thanks,
good rest
everybody.
of your day.
Okay.
Bye.